telling you that because, yeah, you see almost like a steady, consistent, good result. And this is going to, show my bias here for, am I on the plant-based side or am I on the meat-based side? But guys, like when we're just looking at the results of the people that are doing this stuff, like they look good. They look better. They're continually getting better too. It almost doesn't end. They just keep looking younger. They keep looking healthier. Whereas we're sort of seeing the, I don't know, in some people we're seeing sort of a deterioration effect almost with the plant-based side. And that only starts to happen years down the line. And we don't really see the same thing happening on the carnivore side, at least from what I've noticed. For instance, people go carnivore. There's not like some fall off period where there's like they hit 5 years and they're like, oh my God, like I needed to have broccoli. And that's the thing that brought me back. Like we just haven't been hearing that.
Yeah.
Well, we've been hearing it from the plant side. Like I've been craving eggs and I did it. And like, oh my God, I had a wet dream or like my, something happened that was profound that I was really hoping would come back. My, women losing their periods, like going anemic on the plant-based diet. Have never heard of that on the carnivore diet. Not yet anyway. Have you been seeing any issues on your end?
Well, I get a lot of comments. So there is the odd case of someone saying something didn't work for them. Not a lot of people, but occasionally I'll get a comment, someone saying they have like high blood pressure since they started carnivore or just like a racing heart, things like that. I think these come down to like not getting enough electrolytes, and that's something you kind of have to play with. But for every one of those comments I get probably 500, 1,000 that are people saying they're doing really, really well with this way of eating. And yeah, that's just the people who are commenting.
I definitely dosed myself with the opposing perspective and got out of the confirmation bias because I wanted to have more certainty bringing a child into the world. And, it's one thing to go through most of the pregnancy without Megan had a little eggs and maybe oysters when we were in South Carolina, but for the most part, she was vegan and had zero appetite for anything that was related to protein. Like, she couldn't stomach beans or any of that stuff. And so I'm just like, my mind's boggling. And I'm like, I knew that something needed to give. And, so that's when you were going through your experiments and you're just like, hey, this is working for me. And what do you have to lose? You've been doing veganism for 10 years. Like, it's just ego to not let yourself try and experiment for a week. And so I took that to heart, and that was kind of the turning point. So.
Hey, I think we should start it off controversial. Why not? Yeah, I heard you had a little dispute or some sort of ghosting action with Frank Tufano. Is that true?
Oh yes. Okay. So, basically people have been wanting him to come on the stream, and I wanted him as a guest as well. I have nothing against Frank. I think his information is good. I think he's more knowledgeable than most people in this space. He definitely knows a lot more about the nitty-gritty vitamin, mineral deficiency details than I do, for sure. I don't buy what he's saying about people stealing his material like Paul Saladino. I don't even think Paul Saladino knows who he is. But so that's another topic, but I would get to that in a stream with him. But yeah, so if he comes on, which he's going to come on, let's be honest. You guys know Frank's going to get on the show. I'm going to get him. Don't worry. But so he ignored me a lot in his live streams. I would come in there. I'm like, hey, what's up, Frank? His whole audience is like, oh, Drew's here. They're all pumped. And he's just like ignoring swaths of comments, people tagging me and reading it in his stream. I'm like, this dickhead, And so I finally get a hold of him. I email him like a couple times or something, or he told me to email him. So I was like, perfect. Emailed him. He's like, your associates are people that I don't get along with. I don't know like what your intention is, basically. As I wrote him a whole nice email. I was like, hey, dude, these are the topics I want to cover. I was very upfront about it. I said, just because I know who you're talking about, just because Tristan might make fun of you, like, I don't partake in that. I don't engage in that. Like, Tristan goes way overboard, and he loves to do it when I'm talking to him too, because he wants to get me involved in it. And I get it. It's funny. Like, it is funny, but I don't go out of my way to add to fire, you know? So, I just told him that. I was like, hey man, like, I'm going to give you your fair shot. Like, I want to talk to you on my stream for true value purposes type of thing. And I meant that. And he goes, okay, sounds good. I'm in. So a couple weeks went by, like 3 weeks. And I said, hey man, you're really heating up right now. Like, you're dropping bombs on your videos. I've got my channel going hardcore right now. I'm interviewing all these people. Like, now is the time. Let's get you on. And he goes, sorry, you don't get to play both sides. That's what he says to me. And it pissed me off. I was like, what is this guy talking about? So I immediately responded back, like, excuse me? No response. And then the next day, he puts out the video about the Elise Cargill shill people, Illuminati bullshit. And so I go and I link him that. I said, is this what you're talking about? Like, I thought he was blocking me from the interview because I'm associated with these people. And I'm like, dude, I don't even talk to these people at this moment, you know? So you're tripping for no reason. And no response. And so I heard somebody else, one of my viewers went in there and said, hey, what's the deal with you not going on and speaking with Drew? And so he responded to them, and he said he had an inside tip, somebody that he knows, an inside tip that I'm going to try and expose him for something. And he couldn't risk it. Like, what are you talking about? What inside tip? Man,
I think that Frank Tufano, and I'm going to say that as nicely as I can, but I believe that this young man is very paranoid and has real psychological issues. I do think that he believes there is a conspiracy against him. Yeah. I see him shutting down all the doors in the carnivore community. And nobody ever attacked him first. That never happened. Tristan was super nice to him. He hosted his debates. He moderated everything. He was on his side, right? It was Frank Tufano that started attacking him. It was Frank Tufano that started attacking Sean Baker. It was Frank Tufano that started attacking Alice, Tim Sheaf, and in the end, you, and now me as well, right? This is a premiere here, guys. I'm going to tell you that. Maybe not the whole story, but I'm going to give you a little sneak peek. Frank Tufano sent me an email as well, out of nowhere. I never had any contact with him other than on Facebook. We exchanged a couple of messages where he asked me if I can put all my Earthling ad videos together so he can send a link to his audience. So I said, just link my playlist if you like it so much. Never responded, but linked my playlist, right? After all. Okay, thanks for sharing. That was it. Since then, nothing. Out of a sudden, I see this little mail in my inbox. Frank Tufano. All right. I checked if it was the real mail. Yes, it was. And in the email, no hello, no hi, no hey, how are you doing, Bobby? Nothing. But check this out, guys. I've been uploading for 3 years at the exact same time. Do you want me to mesh you in with the carnivores and the Cargill carnivores? That's it. So I respond, like the gentleman that I am. I don't understand. Can you please explain? He never got back to me. And now, out of a sudden, I'm the enemy as well. And out of a sudden, there's this huge conspiracy. I'm a Cargill carnivore. Living in Macedonia, I'm a Cargill carnivore. I never heard of Cargill before that, man. I haven't heard of Cargill
either. But of course, we would say that. We would say that as shills, Bobby. You know that.
Yeah, true. That is true. There you have it. Exposed.
Like, what was your physical status at that time? Did you lose a bunch of weight, or like, where were you at with your body?
So right in that point, that was kind of like what I call my like confusing year and a half, where I was like, wait, am I feeling bad or am I not? Because I would still kind of gotten off this few-year high of going from death's door, feeling disease like a leper, to feeling like this light, abundant, smaller, person. And that felt really good. But then that's just started to feel a little different. I would go through periods where I would bulk, and as a different person eating animal foods, when I would bulk, I would put on tremendous, a lot of muscle. I can put on muscle pretty quick. As a vegan, I just would totally up my calories, and I didn't feel like I gained any muscle, just body fat. And then when I would shred down, I would be right at the same place I was. So I spun my wheels for like 8 years. My strength in the stamina workouts did increase every year. And then around year 4, plateaued. My body weight dropped every year. And here's the thing that sucked. I'm pretty smart about lifting weights and working out. I'm an ex Division I college athlete. I love it. I nerd out on it. I know what I'm doing. During those 8 years, I didn't gain any strength in my major lifts except pull-ups. My bench press, my overhead press, my deadlift, and my squat basically stayed the same, despite putting in tremendous amount of hours in the weight room. My hormones, my teeth, so many things were falling apart, and it became pretty obvious. And the foods that were healing me, you know, lots of fruit, lots of potatoes and starches, and then a pretty decent amount of grains. I found some that worked good for me at the time. That started creating constant diarrhea, started creating weird gas that before was the vegan gas where I'd fart and be like, haha, it was loud and it smells good. I'm so like clean, to like being like, that doesn't smell right, you know? And it was just all of these biomarkers, all these little signs stacking up. And that year and a half of confusion ended bad. You know, I was in a bad place.
Dr. Darren Schmidt, I'm not sure if you're aware of him, but he says that carbs is the only thing that determines whether or not you're going to get into ketosis or not. We have other people saying, well, if you eat too high of protein, you actually won't get into ketosis. So like, where do you stand on that? Like, what have you seen? Is that something we should be shooting for? Are we actually in ketosis when we're carnivore? Like, what is going on there?
Yeah, I know there's definitely some debate over this. I've seen people who say you need to have 2-to-1 ratio of fat to protein. And then I've seen other people who say, just eat as much protein as you can and just let the fat fall into place. I think it varies from person to person. Some people do a lot better with higher fat. I think most people who are eating no carbs are in ketosis because the thinking behind why too much protein is going to kick you out of ketosis is gluconeogenesis. So that's where your body turns excess protein into glucose. But the thing with that is it's demand driven. So it's not going to happen unless your body needs the glucose. And we do need glucose. And so that's a good thing. We want that to happen as we need it. So it's not as simple as you're eating too much protein and it's just automatically going to turn to glucose.
The only time I ever felt that way as a vegan was when I ate off of your land, when I ate that food. It had to be the highest end possible fresh, the nutrient, the actual mineral given crops that were like hand loved basically to give me that sort of sense of satiation and satisfaction where it gave me like a mental feeling afterwards where I actually felt this wave of like, oh, that was a good meal. I did not feel that way.
Probably because we had more fat, you know, like we would always have the coconut yogurts and whatnot. And I think fat does that in general. It's more grounding.
You think it was the fat and not the mineral density? Because I don't know. I don't know what it could be.
You know, there's definitely, yeah, I mean, it really depends on what the plants are that you're eating and how well you digest them. If you have gut issues, then probably you're not going to be getting a whole lot out of your food. Like you watch someone with Crohn's disease and they could be eating twice as much as you. And I've seen this. I've had friends that, you know, they're eating so much and I just watch them wither away because their body is just passing it right through. It's not what you eat as much as it's what you absorb. And the truth is you probably had major gut issues and the one thing that you still could absorb is meat. So yeah, it probably did feel a lot like
finally I'm getting something.
This warm fuzzy feeling in your chest. And
Now, did you have gut issues as a vegan?
I think I lasted a long time because I had a real strong foundation. You know, my mom I'm the grandson of a butcher. My mom would just feed me, you know, amazing food my whole life. Always very rich and you know, I definitely had access to some junk food, but she would always prepare like a home cooked meal from scratch. And yeah, I've always had a stronger gut than the average person. And that really got put to the test when I was trying to do, I was eating basically for like 2 years, 1 meal a day. It's like, you know, that if you want to, I mean, the Japanese say eat 80% of your capacity. It's like really hard to do that if you're only eating once a day. So I would always probably push that to like 130, 140% of my capacity. And over time, who knows what kind of, you know, dietary stress that really induces. But there's definitely, I never really had major acid reflux, but I'd have bloating and yeah, just pain, stomach pains.
If we're talking about bodybuilding, no, the vegan diet is not better for bodybuilding. I don't care what John Venus will tell you. No, the carnivore diet is not better for bodybuilding. The best diet for bodybuilding is rice and meat. And that has been proven for 100 years. That is what it is. So we can debate this, we can talk about this. Meanwhile, bodybuilders sitting there, 150 kilos, they're laughing at this dialogue because they already know what works. Jonathan Irizarry, good friend of mine, and he was on your stream as well. He is an IFBB bodybuilder. He tried it all, man. He went vegan. He tried the raw vegan thing, fasting. He went carnivore, snake diet, 1 meal a day, all of it. What is he eating now? Protein pancakes, right? Chicken sandwich, because it works. That is what works. I'm not saying that's the healthiest. It isn't. Absolutely not. If you have an issue with eating grains, you think it's not human food, then don't eat them. If you have digestive upset like here, yours truly, don't eat them. But for bodybuilding, there is nothing better than rice and meat. That's it. Always has been that way, always will be. Period.
We got a couple comments about this. I'm gonna lump these comments in, and we'll get to the super chat because these comments are directly about what we're saying right now. Abyss says the swole look isn't muscle or fat, it's water. If you use rice or honey for gains, you'll run into all kinds of other issues. We're not talking about this being optimal for health. Like, if you were not concerned with bodybuilding whatsoever. Oh, and I got another comment here. Drew has a body image issue with his current size is fine. Guys, no.
Body dysmorphia.
Let's get something straight here. I like the way that I look right now. I like the way I look regardless. Okay? If anything, I have overconfidence. Okay? I like the journey and the understanding of the mechanics of the body. I like going to the gym and seeing that this exercise puts this kind of muscle on and this kind of strength on. I like being in there by myself with it's probably the only time of the day where I have no connection to other people. My headphones are blasting and I'm in my body just focusing on the mechanics of how the body moves. I like that shit. And Bobby, you've been a bodybuilder.
Good, man.
You know exactly what I'm talking about.
Feels good, bro. Feels good.
Teeth issues during veganism afterwards. You want to get into that right now?
Yeah, sure. So I did post a video on this like maybe a week ago, but I mean, it's really straightforward story. 8 years into my veganism, actually like 6.5, my teeth were falling apart nonstop. I couldn't keep up with my tooth decay, and I was having, high-end hygiene. And the high-end hygiene, the really focused mouth hygiene, led to in the last year and a half, I was literally, I have a niece who's a dental hygienist. So I had to hook up with a dentist. Most people are like, oh, you must be filthy rich if you can do this. And I'm like, I had to hook up. But I was going to the dentist about every 9 days because I was freaking out. I had to get a root canal. I had a tooth pulled. I had a bunch of cavities filled. I was brushing my teeth constantly. I was flossing after every meal. I mean, it got really bad. And no matter what I did, my tooth decay would not stop. I was eating a starchy, carbohydrate-based diet, and I didn't have any ability to remineralize my body in any way, shape, or form. All I was eating was catabolic foods that were, at best, micronutrients. There was no thick macros. And I'm a total, crazy person, and I know science doesn't believe this, but I don't believe from a vegan diet you get macros. You only get micros, in my opinion, generally speaking. But I didn't have any source of bone building, teeth building nutrients in my diet. So it wasn't a thing about keeping them clean. They were dying from the inside out because of my nutrients. And that's why they were able to bounce back so quickly. You know, I read Weston Price. I looked at a lot of his literature. I looked at a lot of other people, and I just upped my cholesterol like crazy. And obviously I was doing lots of eggs, lots of beef, lots of salt, and lots of goat butter at the end. And my teeth remineralized. I mean, they're a whole different mouth. And I stopped going to the dentist once I went carnivore. Was facing several cavities, possible root canal. I'm sitting, you know, with a vegan missing tooth still, but everything else is far more white and a lot stronger, and no sensitivity, no nothing. I feel really good.